Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Oh My Career Goodness podcast. I'm your host, Hamza Islam, and my guest this week is Emmanuel Long, who is the co-founder and co-president of the Undergraduate Society of Black Leaders. This organization at Ohio State looks to empower and develop Black students through inclusive leadership, development, mentorship, network exposure, and centralizing internship opportunities. Now, if you guys are checking this podcast out for the first time, I am a student at The Ohio State University, so it is always special to be able to talk to people who go to the same school as me. And Emmanuel is one of my favorite people to talk to. So, Emmanuel Long, welcome to the Oh My Career Goodness podcast.
Thank you for having me, Hamza. It's such a pleasure, honestly. Like I'm kind of geeking out, but it's really good to be with you today and being able to lend my voice to listening ears.
Yeah, no, of course. I really appreciate you saying that you were geeking out. Normally, no, I don't get that, but I think, and I do mean when I say that you're one of my favorite people to talk to because I think for a lot of people, college can be an up and down roller coaster relationship. But I think the one thing that people can easily take away is that maybe you might not enjoy the classes, but you'll definitely enjoy the friends you made throughout your journey, and they've one way or another helped you in becoming the person that you are today, and will help you so much into the future. Um, but I want to talk about before we talk about the Undergraduate Society of Black Leaders. I want to be able to talk about something that is really important to you, which is the fact that you are a first generation college student. And the thing about college students is that whenever you go to college, you'll realize that everyone has a different story than you. There's no two identical stories, and usually their background means a lot to them. And
Mhm.
so I want to know for you personally what it means to be a first generation college student, because I think a lot of people will say, oh, they're the first in their family to go to college. But I feel like while that may be true they may be true for those who are first generation college students, it means much more.
Right. Yeah, thank you for that wonderful question. And it's a very loaded question. And there are varying complexities, and people will give you all kinds of different answers. But yeah, being a first generation college student is something that's very central to one of my many identities, right? And so when it comes to what being a first generation college student means to me, what it means is being able to break generational curses, being able to traverse land and traverse terrain that no one in your family has been able to do before. And so it also means, having to develop a chosen family, having to be able to know or develop those skills on whether it be networking, how to communicate, how to navigate academia in general, and being able to surround yourself with the various individuals who'd be able to help you elevate yourself into that level. And so coming into my collegiate experience, I was just like one of those gunner individuals, right? Over the summer, met with my advisors, created my 4-year degree plan. And literally over the summers when I learned how to professionally write an email. And I had to essentially train myself in different areas that no one around me knew of those skills to even train me. And so I had to really seek resources and be able to work and get different opportunities and different experiences and skills that will be able to help me get me to the place I am and help me get to the places that I'm going. And so when it comes to what that means to me, it means being able to be adaptive, being resilient, being able to take a risk and be daring, because that's what every single first generation college student has done by being on this campus, by being in any campus, right? And so I really want to ensure that, first of all, shout out to all the first generation college students who are listening to this, and just know that you are loved, you are seen, even though this institution may, at times, it may make you feel as though you're not seen. You always have a support group, whether it be in the Buckeyes First Student Organization, various first generation support spaces, and shameless plug, the Tri Alpha First Generation Honor Society, which I'm the director of operations of. And so really know that um, and I'm speaking to myself when I say this, but know that you're not alone in this journey. There's so many other people who have traversed this before you and have trailblazed paths before you and laid down tracks. And so just know that you can always feel free to ask questions. Don't ever hesitate to seek clarity, and just know that when it comes to developing what your own first generation journey is for you, know that your journey, like Hamza was saying, is very unique. It's one of a kind, and it belongs to you, and no one else can walk your path. And so just know that you are able to make your journey and make your life how you want.
Oh my gosh, I really love what you said where you're talking about you're not alone in this. I think I had a guest last week who I interviewed where we talked about like when you're involved in it, like when you're involved in some sort of situation, it's very easy to think, am I like if you're doing this all by yourself? And I think a lot of people when they go through like a difficult journey, they feel like they're going through this by themselves. But then
Mhm.
it's like, no, wait a minute, there are people like you who, yes, we have different stories, but we do we are in the same, I guess, journey together, right? Like different stories, but we still are still first generation students. We are all trying to figure things out. And I think, and it's difficult. I don't know if this is something you relate to, but college is a very important 4 or 5 years of your life. And it's so easy to feel like I don't know, maybe this sometimes I feel like this way where it's like you got to be perfect. Like you got to make sure everything is good, but you have to also realize that there are bumps along the way and it's just a matter of how do you make sure that you provide the best experience possible so that you're not only present for the you're not there for the present, but there for the future. I don't know if that makes sense,
Exactly.
but like that's what
Yeah,
I'm thinking.
yeah, exactly. And so when it comes to, and look, being a first generation college student comes with lots of comparison. You are constantly trying to take a pulse check of your environment to try to see, okay, am I doing the right thing? Am I am I going in the right direction? You know, how am I placing my feet one foot in front of the other? And so you're always trying to compare yourself to the next person. Am I doing what other people are doing who may have connections, whether it be through nepotism, we know it all, we know it all too good and well, whether it be through just general connections, um, social capital, cultural capital, academic capital when it comes to those in families who have traversed their college experience or traversed college before. And so when it comes to not looking in either lane next to you, right? Not looking in the rear view, not looking to the left, to the right of you, only looking forward and ensuring that you are just thinking about, okay, I am where I'm at. Where do I want to be? How can I leverage the resources around me to be able to get me to where I want to be? And just know that the journey is not going to be perfect. My journey is not perfect, right? And people who are close to me will be able to echo that, right? And just when it comes to the competition, comparison, just know that you are enough. Your experiences in your life, your upbringing got you here, and that's you being here is worthy in and of itself. And so just know that your life experiences, your lived experiences, and all those lessons got you to where you are today. And your excellence and your skill, your intelligence, all those different factors make you enough. And so when it comes to all these different things that other people may have around you, don't even pay attention to it. It might be something to learn from. You might think that one of those things that you see other people doing will be beneficial to you, and it most likely will be because those are different skills that other people are using, and their family members have used in order to get them to success in academia. But know that you don't need to sprint every single way of your journey, right? There's going to be some slow moments. There are going to be times where you have to walk and take a break. There's going to be times to where, you're sprinting and you really want to get to the light at the end of the tunnel, but you really just have to pace yourself.
Yeah, I really love what you said. I think, it's funny because you're the co-founder, co-president of Undergraduate Society of Black Leaders, and I'm already envisioning the leadership capabilities of you. But I want to talk about, so you and I both we were freshmen during that COVID year. So I think like senior year of high school, freshman year of college, that was like the whole COVID situation. But so like I guess we're both on track to graduate in 2024, but I want to talk about what it was like to find out that you were going to be attending Ohio State, because for a lot of people, and I hate to bring up the term comparison, but it's like, okay, we're all trying to figure out where we're going to college, are we going into our dream school and everything else, but then we also kind of have to like look at it from your lens, right, in the sense that this is not, it's a unique opportunity to not just go to Ohio State but also go to or be the first one in your family to attend college, right? It's been something that's never been done in the past. You're the first person that's doing this. So talk to me about take me back to that moment when you found out that you were, or first of all, for not just attend Ohio State, but to be able to attend college in general.
Mhm. Yeah, I know for the viewers, right? My answer to this question, or you might think that my answer to this question is going to be like this big hurrah, or like, oh my goodness, I got accepted to the Ohio State University. But when I received my acceptance, right, I remembered like with scholarships and different things like that, and like receiving full rides and getting into different programs like the honors program and whatnot. It was definitely it was exciting for me. Like, of course, you're getting these acceptances, you have different offers that you're wanting to compare, or that you're able to compare. And so I told my mom, she was like literally just in her bed. It was one night I got the acceptance. And like she wasn't able to reciprocate that same energy or that same excitement that I felt for myself. And so that really revealed to me that there will be some things in my college experiences, actually a lot of things, a majority of things in my college experience, that my parents, my family members won't be able to celebrate with me the magnitude of those achievements. And in those moments, I have to I have to dissociate or disconnect the value of mine to receive praise or receive celebration from my family concerning my achievements, because they don't know. They just simply don't know. And they don't know the value, the the rigor that it took to, or the different skills that it took to be able to receive those accolades and achievements. And when I got accepted to Ohio State, like it was just like this like door opened for me, before my eyes. I was able to get access to so many different opportunities, whether it be research, various programs that'll be able to help me catapult myself into different spaces that I wanted to occupy. And I just remember sharing the news with my family members. Like they're saying, like, oh, you're gonna be majoring in neuroscience, like you're so smart, but like they just really have no idea what that is. Like you could say any major and they would so like, oh my goodness, you're a genius. And so it was honestly like when I got the acceptance, there were a lot of unknowns. There was a lot of uncertainty, especially from my family. And just growing up first generation, family is a very salient value, especially in the transition from going to high school to college. And so they would like a certain level of let's see, a certain level of accessibility from that transition from high school to college that they don't any longer have. And that's one of the things that I also had to come to terms with, right? And so when I received that acceptance and found out that I was going to Ohio State, a lot of what I was navigating in terms of my excitement, the possibility, the various avenues and niches that I could fill as a student with the various passions that I had to navigate alone. And that's not a unique experience. It's very common for first generation college students to have to do. And it taught me a lot, right? It taught me on how to not allow my emotions and my emotional regulation to be dependent on what my family is able to provide for me. And I can provide that for myself, and I can leverage other people in my network and my chosen family to do the same. And so, and that's no fault to my family. Like they just don't know what they don't know, and that's really a societal issue, right? It's not their fault, but that's just the consequence. And so I would say that kind of sums up my experience in terms of getting that acceptance. It was very lonely, but over time, I was able to be connected with all kinds of different people who were in similar experiences or similar situations, getting connected to various university programs, being surrounded by a support network of individuals in high places that were really able to lift me up.
Yeah, and you brought up something really interesting, which is like the fact that family still plays, like family's essential and a part of your life. And that's actually what I want to talk about, which is the fact that I feel like a lot of people where they reached like when we all want good things to happen to people, don't get me wrong, but then there comes a point in time when they're able to do something that previous generations haven't done, and then once they get that good thing, they're kind of like forget about who was with them throughout their journey. So it's like, hey, thank you guys for everything, but I'm gonna associate myself with these people.
Right.
So for you personally, and especially because of the fact that you talked about how even though your family doesn't may have not known the things and not able to help you, how important are they still today and even in the future? Because I'm sure even if they don't have the knowledge to be able to help you throughout your college journey, they can still play a part in helping you achieve your goals despite what they may or may not know.
Yeah, exactly. And like, don't get me wrong, like first generation college students' parents are still people. There's very much still individuals who are able to be emotional support structures and individuals who can offer wisdom and insight into various experiences that may not necessarily be the same and aren't the same that they because they just simply haven't been in academic spaces especially at the collegiate level, and they're able to take their insight, whether it be through careers, organizational oversight, interpersonal relations, all these different things they can apply to anything that we do in college. And so, especially when it comes to interacting with staff, faculty, knowing how to network, knowing how to speak to people, professionalism, interpersonal communication, conflict resolution, all these different things they're able to assist us with. And so, I would like to say that and although they're not able to offer like a template for us like other people's families are able to offer them, they can definitely still offer and like they can still offer assistance and different things that we have to navigate. And even if they can't offer assistance, they're still your family. They're still individuals who supported you your whole life and in some way, shape, or form contributed to the person that you are, even if they didn't help you with their college application process, like which was my situation. They still ingrained in you all kinds of different things, whether it be the way that you were socialized, the way that you grew up in your environment, and whether it was like a negative environment or unhealthy, or may have even been positive, some portion of that or some portion of where you are today was a direct result of some type of influence that your parents or your guardians played growing up in your life. And so regardless of like whatever, because first generation college student relations can be a little bit tricky just due to the lack of understanding and unintentional ignorance with certain things. And so it's still just important to realize that regardless of the situation, parents, guardians, people who have cared for you that are able to witness and watch you traverse this experience for the first time can still have a place in your life in academia if you let them.
Yeah, I love the fact that you have this very like humbling like part of you where it's like you don't just go thank you for everything, I'm gone, but it's like, you know what, thank you for everything. You're still going to be really important in the future and everything was possible because you made it happen. So I
Exactly.
love that. I love that. But I want to transition into kind of like now the college experience because for a lot of college students it's all about not just grades but opportunities, right? Because we want to figure out how to be successful outside the or not just inside the classroom but outside. But as a first generation college student, and I don't know, I'm kind of learning this for the first time, you like your mark I don't know how to say this, but like it's hard to I guess not make mistakes, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, um because you're the most important thing is to get like the best GPA, the best grades possible. So like how do you handle outside classroom work and inside classroom work? Is there one where it's like I need to focus more on the classroom work because people will say grades don't matter, but at the end of the day, if you are reaching a certain like if you are not doing good in class, we obviously know you might get kicked out of school, and obviously, and that would be a
Right.
huge part in your life. So it's like, how do you handle like the classroom work and then also your extracurricular activities?
Yeah, it's very tricky. And it's honestly, as we're developing this organization and building it out and trying to ensure that's sustainable over, for forever, how long the life of the organization will be, it's something that is still being figured out. And it's a learning process for me. And so I came in hot, like my first year, right? Like, like not to brag, because I mean, honestly, people who know me, I don't celebrate myself enough. But I came in hot, like 4.0 first year. I didn't have any, well, I had a few involvements, it was like COVID, it was virtual, right? And so I was like really just trying to set myself up for success, being able to um, overturn stones and seeing what's on the other side, right? And I was able to like learn all this information about how to get involved, how to study, how to connect with professors, how to search for research opportunities. And so it's time to apply all this information, right? And so you essentially have to be able to balance, okay, I have to balance my grades and I have to maintain all these different priorities. And so in terms of what that process looks like for me, there's some days to where academics have to get pushed to the side because of like whether it be certain involvements, having to like manage teams, other people not necessarily doing their part. And so that leading to different stresses that are placed on me as a leader. And so one of the things that I'm learning is that it's not necessarily okay to do that. And you shouldn't be dropping um or like foregoing time that you would commit toward academics in order to be able to be successful in student organization spaces because we have to primarily remember why we're here in the first place. And so when it comes to how I look at that balance now, if something doesn't work out in an extracurricular, if something isn't as successful as we want it to be, then it's not going to be as successful as we want it to be. I can't be the person who bridges the gap all the time because what happens is I essentially pour from an empty cup and I have all this energy that I'm pouring into something and investing into something that I don't have to give. And that's really the important lesson I'm learning about being able to balance extracurriculars and academics and essentially prioritizing myself and my wellness first and ensuring that in everything that I do, I'm able to be considerate of how saying yes to something is saying no to myself in one aspect or one way or in one way or another.
Yeah, I like the fact that you kind of talked about when I was laughing when you were like, I came in hot 4.0. And I think and I don't think it's a braggy thing because I think there are moments where you kind of just showed like the human side of you because you came in at a certain point and then you also were at a situation where it's like, okay, how do I how do I continue to be the best version of me? And sometimes you're at a weird situation where you're like, okay, what do I say yes to? What do I say no to? If I say yes to this, how does that affect me as a person? And these are all difficult things. And I don't think there's any college student, whether it's regardless if it's you or me or whoever, that has it perfect. And I think it's important to note that like there are gonna be moments where you don't have like the best version of you. So I appreciate you for saying that. And I don't think, or at least I hope that there's not one person that went, well, Emmanuel has a 4.0. And it's like, no, he had that journey. But I want to talk about the Undergraduate Society of Black Leaders, your organization. But before I do that, this is a leadership organization, and I touched a bit about how, based on like when you were talking to me, you picked up some leader. Like it sounds like yeah, you have the capabilities of leader, saying that like um, just thanking people, or I don't know. I guess this is one quality of leader, but it's like even if people cannot help you directly, they can still help you indirectly, and you're thankful for that. Maybe that was a terrible characteristic. I don't know, but I'd love to know when you realized you had capabilities of a leader, because you obviously have a really good organization, but that organization has to come within you, if that makes sense.
Right, exactly. Like essentially the organization is a byproduct of like what our internal environment is. Yeah, 100%. And so just to answer your question, there was never a point in time to where I and there still hasn't been a point in time to where I have it all. Like I have all these different traits to be a good leader. You just really have to believe in yourself and know that you're like we're students first. We are like 18 through 22, 23 years old, right? For the most part. And we're trying to navigate this thing for the first time. It will take lots of time. It'll take lots of practical effort. And what that means is being able to learn things real time. You can't take, and what I've learned is that you can't be overly analytical. You can't stall things or be stagnant in order to try to critically think your way around navigating certain situations. And so you really just have to do the work and learn and reflect and learn as a result and implement those things over time. And so especially when it comes to the Undergraduate Society of Black Leaders. It was a lot of learning, a lot of being able to meet with various student organization advisors, being able to meet with student organization consultants, and learning the ins and outs of processes, what will be the best practices, implementing valid systems and processes that will allow our organization to be set up for success and being able to be sustainable in terms of leaving a legacy. And I would say that, just to circle back to the question, I really noticed within myself that I'm a very participative person. I like to raise my hand first because I just love being able to be engaged and being engaged and learn. And so that really it carried itself throughout my education. So like elementary, middle school, junior high, high school, and even in college. And so I was always taught to sit in front of the class, try to be one of the first people to raise your hand, being able to, and like, even though like I don't care about being the first to raise your hand, like that's not important to me. But being an individual to take the initiative to take risks. And that's what the organization was. And so really it was just me honing in on my intense desire to learn, to be able to grow, and being able to pour myself and my pour my energy into something that I'm very passionate about. And so you just can't go wrong when it comes to doing that. You just do need to be cognizant about how much you're pouring into certain things. And so that's also a skill that you need to develop as a leader. So being able to know your limits, set boundaries, being able to know when enough is enough and what a good stopping point is for you, and how to, though you're developing an organization, you still have priorities to maintain. And so when it comes to learning how I've become the leader I am today and learning how I'm going to become the leader that I'll be in the future, it's an ever ongoing process, right?
Yeah, no, I think it's I think one of the things that, and I think you've answered my, or you're able to help me when I was talking about what makes a leader or like the capabilities of leader is that you have to admit that you don't know everything. It's a learning process, regardless if it's good or bad. Like these are the things that are going to help you become a better person. And so talk me through like how the organization became a thing and what you hope to accomplish with this organization, because I know it's not going to just be there when you're gone. It's going to continue to be there years after you graduate from Ohio State.
Thank you. That was really kind. But yes, it's a story for sure about how the organization came about. When it was my sophomore year, it was in like over winter break, right? I essentially was just observing the current state of Black student organizations on campus. And so whether you have like repeat events, lack of communication, um, insufficient collaboration, competition, individualism, all these different things that can tear organizations apart, since organizations are supposed to be a collective and are supposed to resonate with collectivism. And so, especially within the Black community, collectivism is something that is central to our core values, especially, family and community. These are all different words that are very salient to the Black community and then other marginalized communities, right? And it's important to realize that we need to carry those values forth into everything that we do, and ensuring that we're not watering ourselves down as we enter predominantly white spaces. And so within my own experience up until that point in over winter break of sophomore year, I was trying to search for some type of opportunity or some way to be able to improve the experiences that the Black student organization community is able to offer to its students. And so we only have so much engagement that we're able to have with the Black student population. There are only so many Black students on campus. There are only so many events that you can have before students start to feel fatigued. And so there's already so much that students are available that are allowed that students are able to do on campus that Ohio State just generally offers to all students. And then you have the identity of Blackness that's on top of that. And then you have all kinds of other programming that's catered to other layers of Blackness within that. And so there's just all kinds of different things that you need to be considerate of. And in terms of how the organization came about, I simply went on to the Student Life Multicultural Center at the time is what it was called, and the website, right? I went on the multicultural website and I was looking through just various Black organizations, looking at all the different cohorts that the Multicultural Center had. And I came across the Ujima Leadership Network, right? And so the Ujima Leadership Network at that point was a collective of Black student leaders and Black students from various organizations, about 40 plus students who represented various organizations, right? And so the purpose of the network was to be a space for collective strategy, vision, implementation, support, community building, and just really emphasizing the importance of collective work and unity when it comes to working in tandem and in sync with various Black organizations. And so when it comes to being able to get involved in that space, I just simply saw an email. I saw an email at the bottom of the screen. It said contact X, Y, and Z person to be able to get involved in this organization. And so I reached out. And a few days after that, I received a response. And so his name is Dr. Todd Sudeth. He was the former executive director of the Multicultural Center. And so amazing person. And reached out to him. And then he responded back saying that the organization was no longer active. And he actually invited me to be a part of revamping the organization. And so I was like, okay, this is a huge opportunity. I could be working with the executive director of the Multicultural Center. I would be responsible for overseeing the development of, quality assurance and support and community building for the for the Black student organization community and really Black Ohio State as a means to provide further restoration toward what once was prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. And so I took the opportunity. I then met with Dr. Sudeth to develop the ideas. And then someone who, if you're in the Undergraduate Society of Black Leaders, you know very well, my co-president and co-founder, Jaden Davis, I looped him in and we then started talking about it. I was just telling him about my day. I was telling him about the meetings that I had over winter break. And he also wanted to be a part of making that happen. And so we then started working with Dr. Sudeth. We started to talk about sustainability and leaving a legacy and ensuring that the fire doesn't die out when it comes to Black student organizations, legacies and passions and their sustainability and being able to continue making an impact after graduation and after, like transitions and ensuring that organizations have successful succession planning. And we started adding various elements. And just for transparency, there was some disagreements in terms of between Dr. Sudeth and Jaden and myself about where the organization should head. And that's like not even to talk about Dr. Sudeth, lovely person, very strong leader, but there, disputes just happen, right? And disagreements happen. But yeah, we then parted ways, and then we were then able to Jaden and I met to discuss, all right, we have these ideas, we have this vision, we have what we want to be able to accomplish and the impacts that we want to make on campus. And so we really wanted to be able to take Ujima and ensure that we're standardizing what leadership development and professional development and resource opportunity looks like. And so that's not necessarily what the core principles of Ujima was. So Ujima, again, was just supposed to be a collective of Black student leaders who talked about and held space and forums for various conversations as they related to the Black student leader experience as a means to improve the Black Ohio State student experience. And so we wanted to add various elements that, again, Dr. Sudeth disagreed with. And so we then took those elements and then formed the Undergraduate Society of Black Leaders. And then we then started meeting and discussing, okay, this is what we want the organization to look like. These are the various deficiencies that we've observed within the Black Ohio State community. Here's how we can create a space that will be able to bridge the gap and being able to provide various resources to students. And so we then met with various staff and faculty members, other students, and took a pulse of what the Black Ohio State community was feeling and where various needs and gaps were. So then we decided that, okay, the root of a lot of various things when it comes to lack of stability long-term of Black student organizations is succession planning, transitions, adequate leadership development, and proper training. And so when it comes to the core aspect of our organization, which is leadership development, we want to be able to ensure that Black students on campus are properly trained on how to be leaders, that they themselves already have that potential. We just want to ensure that they awaken that potential and that they're able to realize what being a leader means to them and that there's no one size fits all. And so developing in students what their individual style of leadership is so that they'll be able to establish a collective of students who are working in tandem and in synergy. And so we then developed the organization with the core idea of ensuring that Black student leadership on campus and beyond is properly I would say developed, and also ensuring that with the specific layer of Blackness on top of that, that students themselves aren't watering down their identities when it comes to occupying spaces unapologetically, and ensuring that their Blackness, whatever that means to them, because there's varying definitions of what Blackness may mean to certain people, and ensuring that they're taking that and that they're leading with that. And that's really how the organization got started. We then met to brainstorm, okay, what do we want the impacts to be? We then brainstorm various individuals that we thought and are individuals who are excellent leaders on campus and make tons of impact and are just some of the name when it comes to the names that you think of on Black Ohio State campus leadership and really just campus leadership in general, that you're like, this person is excellent at what they do. And so we got all these people. We had about it was like about 90% of the people who we reached out to wanted to be on our team, right? And so that's like huge, right? We reached out to these people in like February and March, or in February, started having meetings in March, and then officially launched the organization with our photo shoot in April. And ever since, it's been a crash course of learning, unlearning, process improvement, incorporating feedback, implementing efficient operations, and ensuring that we're first and foremost embedding humanism within our organization as we're trying to sustain our impact.
Yeah, I love the fact that, and I really appreciate you for telling the whole story because you kind of just get like a really good idea of how difficult it is to create a student organization. So I love what you said. Also, I do apologize if like apparently they're doing some sort of like yard work around my house. So I didn't even so like half the time it was just like, wait, where's the sound coming from? So um no, but I do love everything you said. So that was really good. And something that you kind of brought up, and I want to talk about this, is that it's one thing to have support from a lot of people, but it's even difficult to be able to have support from people who look like you. And so, whether it's with like brown people trying to get other brown people to be excited about your organization or whatever. And so how do you try to convince people or black students at Ohio State that even though this is something that they may have never done or may never thought of, that like they have the potential and capabilities of doing something special, such as being a leader in whatever field they pursue? Because I feel like it is such a difficult thing to try to persuade people.
Yeah. So really, we're just straight up, right? These are the gaps that we observe. This is what we're doing in order to fill those gaps. And so when it comes to inspiring students or empowering students to really have the confidence and the faith in themselves that they already have what it takes to be that person that they want to be, it's really just about ensuring that they have adequate knowledge about Blackness first and foremost. And then what leadership can be in all of its various forms. And so we take students through what Blackness means, what leadership means, what Black leadership was, is, and what it can be to those students, and essentially looking at how they can apply that in various spaces as they go about making their unapologetic impact. And that's really one of the core principles of the organization, is being able to empower students and developing students to be able to awaken that already dormant potential, right? Or if it's not dormant, allowing them to realize that, the value of what they have. And in terms of realizing the value of the organization, I think that, especially with the organization's launch, there was just lots of buzz around the organization, like, oh, what's USBL? And so like all eyes were on us essentially. And so that was a big push for us to be able to get out a lot of these different views that we want to ensure are normalized and not taboo within the Black community at Ohio State. And so we have all these different sentiments, whether it be the capitalist superstructure of society imposing individualism onto the Black community, imposing competition, sentiments of, being the best student organization, or student organizations like being better than others and the people within them having competition and all these different things that are very divisive, right? And so ensuring that we're able to instill values within people that everyone can win, everyone can succeed in their own way, and that they can do so while taking up all kinds of space. There's so much space at Ohio State, and we shouldn't just solely trying to we shouldn't be trying to compete within the Black Ohio State community. And there's all kinds of different spaces. There's plenty of room for us to occupy. And when it comes to how we persuade students to realize the value of that, it's just simple as that. We tell the truth. We appeal to their own desires, which is what our organization does. Is we want to be able to catapult people into various spaces and in positions and opportunities and competitive internships and things like that. Um, and so we use different things that might be, I would say, appealing to students. Like when people hear leadership, like, just really how society is already, they think that, being a leader or like being a boss or being a manager is just like so revered. But one of the things that we want to do in the organization is deconstruct the hierarchical nature of what that is, and ensuring that students are able to know that you don't need to be someone's boss, or you don't need to be in a title leadership position to be a leader and enact change in society. And it's worked, right? Like we have lots of traction, lots of interest within our organization. And so our message is something that a lot of students are resonating with, and it's very affirming to us because that's what we want to be. And we want to be a beacon of collectivism and a coalitional force within the Black community and others at Ohio State and beyond. And so we want to ensure that students are able to embody those same values, and that we can deconstruct individualism and white supremacy in all our spaces in the Black community, and especially at Ohio State.
Yeah, no, I love the vision you have and how you're able to just kind of like how you mentioned how you don't want to see it as like a competition between me versus whoever. It's like let's work on helping each other reach our goals and aspirations. So I love that. Before we wrap up, I've got a few more things to ask you, and this is more about you personally. So, firstly, a lot of people who we've talked about how you're the co-president of the Undergraduate Society of Black Leaders, but you're also a student as well. You have your own vision, you have your major, and correct me if I'm wrong. I think you want to do something with neuroscience, and so talk me through what it is about neuroscience that really fascinates you and what you hope to do in the future.
Yeah, so I'll just tell you all what I'm studying. So I'm studying medical anthropology and neuroscience with a minor in African American studies. Seems all over the place, seems like very disjointed, but it all makes sense, and I'll tell you why. So medical anthropology, if you break down the word, so medical, that means medicine. Anthropology, it's the study of people in all times and all places. And so being able to combine those two forms a very interdisciplinary field, to where you're able to use anthropological practices like going into various communities in a culturally relevant way and ensuring that you're collecting data about their community in a way that makes sense to them and that's meaningful to them. And so you're able to add this perspective to medicine, and in that you're able to look at how various socioeconomic, cultural, and identity-based factors can influence how someone experiences and navigates medicine. And I added that major at the beginning of my, or toward the end of my sophomore year. And the reason I did it was because neuroscience, I have a passion for neuroscience, and I'll go into that a little bit later. But I felt like it was too much of a basic science to me. And for those who are in that field, it doesn't mean that like the study is basic. It just means that it's a lot of um let's see, it's a lot of like hardcore science, and I needed a humanities to balance that out, because humanities is a big portion of who I am. And so I'm a very people oriented person. I love speaking with people, I love interacting with people, though I need to take like a lot of time to recharge, like whether it be like 2 to 5 hours after interacting with people. I just love being able to learn people's stories. And part of that is being able to study medical anthropology and studying people and studying um, the various, whether it be historical factors, biological factors, evolutionary factors that influence have influence the development of people, but then now currently influence what people's journeys look like. And so combining that with neuroscience will allow me to be able to do research that has a very multifaceted lens. And so, especially with the African American Studies minor, I'm able to apply Blackness within that and do research in communities that have been historically and intentionally excluded from research studies. And in terms of my future, what I'd like to do, so I'd like to take 3 to 4 gap years pursuing my current neuroscience research in gene therapy and gene therapeutics optimization, and also going into state health equity policy as a means to look at reforming, but also abolishing and reconstructing what our systems look like, especially at a political level, at a policy level, right? And looking at that, how that can translate into a medical operations level as a means to ensure that equity and the people that these very urban hospitals are serving are being placed at the forefront of all the work that people do. And so trying as best as possible. It's a long battle. It's a very hard fight that my lifetime won't be able to see the success of, right? But it's a very generational issue that we're committed to trying to and within that generational issue, being committed to tapping into various resources, whether it be Columbus Public Health, Franklin County Public Health, to be able to ensure that marginalized identities, historically and intentionally minoritized communities are being able to be embedded within the care experience. And after that, I would like to pursue an MD PhD, specifically an MSTP program, which is a medical scientist training program. And within that program, I would like to do very interdisciplinary research. Honestly, like I'm very like I could go in various ways, right? But I could go into like deep brain stimulation, which is essentially looking at how we can modulate synapses, modulate various neurons, and send electrical pulses into the brain in order to stop disease progression or to stop disease symptoms. And that's what I want to do in the future as a functional neurosurgeon or a functional neurologist. And so being able to do my PhD in that, but I'm a sucker for health equity and being able to ensure that, my people are good, other people are good that are systemically oppressed right now. And so being able to go into that field as a beacon of representation and as just utilizing my sole presence, not even just my research but my sole presence as protest to the system. I'm here, I'm doing this research, I have this funding to make impact and deconstruct the system that maybe even got me funding in the first place, right? And so it's a very interesting place to work in, and I also want to do that too. So we'll see what my PhD years look like, God willing. But after my MD PhD, as I said before, I'd like to go into a residency program and eventually become a functional neurologist. But my long-term goals will be able to develop some type of like pipeline or mentorship program for students, specifically systemically minoritized students, to go in, to be pipelined or and essentially envision themselves what a career in STEM or career in medicine will look like as a means to level the playing field and promote equity in terms of access to various opportunities, and ensuring that when we see Black and brown individuals, we just don't think of athletics, or we just don't think of sports, football, basketball, or we don't think of hip hop and entertainment. You can explore all kinds of different avenues, and you can have some very support structures to do them.
Yeah, you have a very good future, I can tell. But no, I love the fact that you mentioned that you are a people-oriented person and you just want to that's a whole, huge part of you, and that you want to be able to help people achieve their goals in whatever way possible. And now I want to end by talking about how you are a first-generation college student, and I hate to use the word kids, so I'm just going to say the next generation after you. But
Right.
so obviously for a long time, people before you weren't able to attend college, and now here you are. You have this knowledge and experience, but you kind of mentioned how this wasn't a perfect path. Like there were a lot of things you had to learn along the way. There were a lot of moments where you're like, ah, it didn't work or whatever. But I'm sure there are going to be people after you that will be going to college. So what do you hope that, I guess, let's use the term kids, even though I hate using that term because we're college students. What do you hope people after you, what are some of the things that you hope they accomplish that you could never accomplish as of now?
That's a really good question. So just to restate it, what I hope people in the future can accomplish that I may not have accomplished now. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, got it. It's okay. Yeah, let's see. Huh, to think about that. Okay.
It's
In
a human
terms
moment.
of, yeah, it is. Um, I'll say this. This journey has not been easy. There have been lots of closed doors. There have been lots of various times to where I could have went for something, but I held myself back. Or yeah, that's like that really sums it up, right? And I know I'm qualified. I know I have the competency. I know I'm the best individual in the room to do it or and have the best qualifications. But whether it be anxiety, insecurities, um, let's see, doubts, self-doubts and self-sabotaging that could really restrict your access to various opportunities that you have the potential to achieve. And so, what I would do and ensure that students in the future have the skill set to do and also the faith in themselves to do is to inform them and to inform them to actualize their potential and being able to have confidence and faith in whatever they're doing. It does not matter if, like the deadline is fast approaching, you need to get a recommender, go for it. Um, you don't know how to ask a recommender, ask somebody how they did it. Um, let's see. And when it comes to getting access to various spaces, know that you're enough. And I'll say this, we commonly hear imposter syndrome, right? You feel as though you don't belong in that space. And that's true. You don't belong. These spaces weren't created for you. This journey was not created for you to walk. And so, especially when it comes to first generation college students, people of systemically minoritized backgrounds, we will feel that way here. And because we are simply out of place, these systems, these institutions weren't created with us in mind. And so it's important to realize that there will be those moments that you need to take a step back to sit with yourself and reflect and know that you are enough and that you are worthy of being where you're at right now. And I would essentially just want to ensure that students are that students have the network and the support structure to empower them and have that built-in family, right? And allowing that in addition to self-empowerment and self-worth and self-esteem to be able to get people to where they want to go.
Yeah. Well, wow. That, I mean, honestly, it's weird because I've known you for like what, a year or so, and I just love the fact that, you have the capabilities of really what it means to be a human being and a leader. And I think, and I applaud you for the fact that you're gonna go through some doubts. You're gonna have moments where things don't go your way, but at the end of the day, it's gonna help you become a better person. And I know it's much easier said than done, but ultimately, I think it is really important to note that it will get better. And I love the fact that you just want to continue to help people reach their goals. And I think that, and it's weird because I've known you for what, a year, and I've already seen the fact that you've always helped me whenever I needed it, and you are really a definition of what it means to be a leader. And Emmanuel, I know I've taken so much of your time, but so really thank you so much for
Well,
joining
thank
this
you.
podcast. But more importantly, I can't wait to see all the good things you do in the future, whether it's the organization or for yourself personally.
Thank you for having me, Hamza. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for believing me. Thank you for believing my organization, and thank you for believing in the impact and just really where things could go and the potential therein. And so just thank you for your time, first and foremost. Thank you for hosting me. And yeah, thank you for this platform. Thank you for allowing me to speak with everyone.
Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. If you like what you saw, feel free to subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow us on Instagram at the OMCG Podcast for more information on guests, preview clips, and more. Please continue to support this podcast in the future, and I can't wait to see you guys in the next episode.